All right, welcome to the Roaring Reactions with the Running Through the Jungle crew. I'm your host, Brandon Harriet, with the host, Chase Youtz and Justin Lacey. Fellas, did any of you make it through any of the press conferences after this horrific loss to the Steelers today?
Hell nah. I ain't even want to watch it. At this point, they can't say anything that's going to win me over or make me feel good about where the direction the rest of the season's going for the last 5 games. And quite frankly, season's done, man. It's a stick a fork in us.
You know, I haven't been this depressed or not even depressed, just lifeless after a game. So like nothing just surprising me anymore, and nothing that Zach Taylor can say would sell me. I'd say, hey, go in the ad service agency if you don't keep coaching, but he can't even do that either. So just get away from Cincinnati.
Hey, you know that there's that on LinkedIn, there's that like that open for work banner.
Yeah.
There's one that was trending all across social media when Ohio State lost for the
Ryan
fourth
Day.
time in a row against Michigan for Ryan Day.
Yep.
They was calling for his head immediately, and the open for work banner came on him. That graphic was making its way around social media. I think the same needs to be done for Zach Taylor at this point and the rest of this coaching staff, because it has been just piss poor pathetic at this point. And I'm ready to go into that discussion, really.
He gonna be calling games with me soon. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, Justin, before you came on, it's been a while since Chase and I have chopped it up and done a podcast or anything else together. And he asked how I've been doing and everything. And I said, man, this team's got me kind of dead inside. That's the best way I can explain it, man. The coaching staff, we keep talking about different play calling, the defense, the lack of tackling, they keep rolling the same things out there and doing the same things that we see week in and week out. Very little wrinkles whatsoever. And they expect something different, but instead what they got was a Steelers offense that has been so-so this year, a little bit better than last year with Matt Canada and the Kenny Pickett experiment, but still hasn't been like explosive by any means, by NFL standards. Gave up 520 total yards today, 410 passing, the second most in Russell Wilson's career. I don't know. I feel like we're marching people out there that are still. I don't know what you guys see, but Hubbard, not only did he not get pressured, but he went up the field so far, so many times. He went so far out of position. He led to really easy plays. I feel like we're missing the boat there. There's some guys that are getting playing time that I'm over. Geno Stone cannot tackle. He is a step slow. He's not performing to where we thought he would be. Where's your take off? Chase, I'll go to you first. Where's your take on this team right now and this game with the Steelers specifically?
I don't even know, man. I mean, after watching the start of the game, and you saw a flash in the pan offensively, and we'll probably talk offensively in a little bit, but I'll stick defensively. It was just play after play where the Bengals would just drop in the zone. And obviously no defense is perfect, and there's always going to be openings to defenses everywhere, regardless of if you play man-to-man, play cover one, cover two, whatever you want to call it. But they kept giving up that pass over the middle where, Najee Harris would sit in the flat, and he'd sit in the hook zone and everything else. It'd be 5-6 yards, and it would turn in to 12, 13 yards because we don't know how to tackle, even though they're professional football players. Again, they're pros playing pros, but it's just it's unacceptable. The tackling was horrible. We can't guard anyone to save our life. We can't get off the field on third down to save our life. Penalties, I mean, again, they came in averaging about 4.7 penalties a game, and we had 11 penalties a day, personal foul penalties. Just because it's the Steelers doesn't mean that you have to raise your angst of letting things get out of hand and get out of control. You can still be aggressive and play with control, but apparently with this team, you can't do that because you're not going to get both sides of the ball or both sides of the coin. with this team. This has shown me, as throughout the season and solidified today, that this is nowhere near a complete football team that has been lost by the coach who is trying to preach stuff to them. We're not in the locker room, obviously.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, there's no belief. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. I don't know if you guys saw Jamar Chase's presser and stuff like that. They were at his locker. They asked him about, what did they think about the defense, and was it surprising that the defense played this bad? He looks over toward the defensive side of the locker room. He's like, they got to get it figured out. Players are starting to come to the alert and try to probably hold back and everything else, but things are not sunny in Cincinnati, and it's not going to be sunny in Cincinnati for a while until major changes are made, and I don't have faith in that. We still have 5 weeks left in the season. I wish we could press fast forward and go forward, but I'll pass it to Justin at this point.
And we're not even talking about being great, Chase. We're talking about being average. If the defense was average, this team would be a playoff team.
Average.
At worst. I mean,
Average.
you can't even sniff average. Score 38 points and lose again. Justin?
Yeah, no. And I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments that Chase did. Obviously, I'm not going to go too in-depth. I'm going to start with this first and foremost, with just the nature of what I saw on the field today against the Steelers. Number one, I do want to give credit to where credit is due. The Steelers, they did make the right necessary adjustments because their defense was getting kicked in the teeth as well, too. And that's supposed to be the best defense in the league this season. And yet, even when they was making some minor adjustments here and there, it still felt like that they couldn't stop Joe Burrow in that offense. And it felt like that no matter how much pressure, no matter how much they try to game plan on locking down, the receiving core that the Bengals have, I feel like the Bengals found the right science for once by running the ball better with Chase Brown. And quite frankly, if they didn't have him in this game, the Bengals were not winning this game by a mile. I mean, we still didn't win the game regardless, but you got to credit TJ Watt, man. He made a big play to kind of turn the momentum around in their favor with the strip sack and fumble. Stuff like that is going to happen when you play him specifically. But the Bengals should have been able to been more mentally strong enough to overcome it. And you thought that they were going to be given another opportunity when we got the blocked field goal that should have stirred the momentum back in our favor, and it just didn't happen. More of the same kept happening. And it just felt like that no matter how much we hoped to believe that the defense was going to register a stop and force a punt, it just never happened that way. And it's just to the point where it's like, I'm done hoping, and I just need to see some changes at this point now. Jermaine Pratt, I know we're going to single out other guys as well, too, like Geno Stone, like you guys already did with Geno Stone, Sam Hubbard. I've mentioned those guys too much on this podcast that both of those guys need to not be on this team anymore. Sam Hubbard is just like he just needs to retire.
Listen, I give you the Sam Hubbard losing a step. We talked about that, like you said, the past several weeks. The part that I can't accept with Sam Hubbard is being that far out of position. Yeah, losing lane integrity. Like, what are you doing? You're a veteran. You don't do that.
The fact that he is still on pass rushing features on passing downs is just not acceptable to me. But I'm going to stare directly to camera at Jermaine Pratt on this one too, because he went out there and talked spicy all week, throughout the bye week, guaranteeing that we were going to win this game after the meltdown performance against the Chargers. And it was like that, okay, we kind of know this was on the defense. He out there and talks crazy on social media, sending out these different tweets every single day. Work hard, work harder, will to win. We're going to win this game. And yet you have a grand total of 12 to 13 missed tackles today. 3 or 2 of them were registered by you, Jermaine. And yet in the locker room at your post-game presser, the question was asked if he was aware that the Bengals had, like, how much he had me miss out. He said, not by much. They was just on the ball with, like, no awareness, no accountability. It seemed like you've been running your mouth for 2 years straight and you've been getting bodied. Jalen Warren pancaked you last year when we played the Steelers last year in their house, and yet this year is much the same from him. His play has dropped off tremendously. Again, this defense is bad from top to bottom, but nonetheless, we supposed to be relying on guys who are captains of this defense, like Jermaine Pratt, and he's not. He's just not good. They're like the rest of the defense. He is the pale approximation of what represents in this entire defense, And it just needs to just start anew with all of it. And I don't want to hear guys that are like, well, Logan Wilson wasn't out there. What Logan Wilson would have done was absolutely nothing. Okay. He's done nothing the rest of the season except for being one of the team lead, league leaders in tackles. But that's a flawed stat because the team gets beat so much on the ground anyway, so that you have no choice but to be able to get tackles when they're already in the second level. I don't want to hear the excuses anymore. This team is just pathetically built right now. And I shame the front office because they went into the season with a plan that I guess that we can kind of go deficient in a number of key spots with the hope that Joe Burrow was going to carry us. And they decided to not foster up another plan B outside of it. And you saw that the moves that they made to try to shore up some deficiencies just wasn't good enough, man.
And we've seen, some of the youngsters get in the secondary here and there, spelling people and whatnot, and actually played pretty well. At this point in time, like, I'm good with living with growing pains to have more splash plays and have more aggression in that and better tackling. I'm willing to live with being out of place every once in a while. Something's got to change.
Yeah. And quite frankly, this team just has no mental toughness. And we thought that they were going to take the step forward on the first drive of the game, where it felt like CTB, like the first drive of Steelers, the first possession of Pittsburgh, where CTB got that pick six. And you just thought like, oh my goodness, they out here ready to show their physicality. But again, we've seen this song and dance before. You remember the first Ravens game. They were physical with the Ravens. In fact, they actually forced a safety in that game. And then in the second game, went up 21-7 to start the third quarter. And you thought, man, this defense was going to start turning the corner. And then it was just much of the same. And shame on me for speaking too soon, thinking that they were going to turn the corner and play ready to play. But the fact of the matter is, man, they had 14 days. You had a whole bye week. And you also had the 10 days before you played the Chargers, even before that. And you still can't go out there and win these games. And you still putting product like that on the field. That's the telling sign that, man, yeah, the players are bad. And the coaching is far worse.
To your point, starts off with physicality and leads that physicality and aggression instead of translating into tackling and playing well, turns into, like you said, silly penalties, being out of position. It doesn't translate into good defense, and it's got to be a controlled aggression, and they're lacking in that. I see it time and time again. You pointed it out. It's one of my biggest frustrations with this team. There's no controlled aggression.
None. I'd rather, don't get me wrong, I'd rather be an aggressive defense that gets beat a couple times, but is able to get home a couple more times as well. That can, that controlled aggression, but that's more of a scheme thing. But I think it's all frustrating regardless, but just had to throw that in there.
Which, listen, that kind of leads me to what I want to do the second half of the show here. We're going to be pretty brief with this one. We're not going to chew your ear for an hour while we're spitting angst, but I do want to talk to you guys after a quick break. I keep saying it over and over again. We owe Joe Burrow more than we're giving him. What those changes need to be are what really kind of is in the foremost of my thought process. Austin Zart, thanks for rocking with us like normal. He said in the front office has done nothing to make changes. There needs to be changes in 2025. The fans deserve better, and Joe Burrow deserves better. I could not agree with you more. I want to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, I want to get into that and also how much blame do you put on the coaching staff, and specifically what coaching staff when you look at these shortcomings. So give us a second, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Roaring Reactions. We've addressed some of the bad defensive play mostly is what we've been talking about, obviously, on the Steelers game. But I'm really interested in your guys' take and your outlook on how much do you put this onus on the coaching staff? What members of the coaching staff? Like, what do you see there that needs to happen? And then going forward, what do you think? I think everybody's starting to look at, hey, what are the changes in 2025? And it might not just all be personnel. It may be coaching staff. Chase, what are your thoughts on that?
So I want to take this from a standpoint of kind of like you talked about before the break with how we owe Joe Burrow and everything else. We've done a lot there. And Tim, the human mind is not fully functioning or fully developed till they're 25 years old. So I'm still trying to figure out who I am. But off of that note, I want to take it from the standpoint of like of the Burrow part of it for today. And I know Justin will probably touch on the rest of that, but the drives today for Pittsburgh. Pick six, they scored a touchdown, field goal, missed field goal, touchdown, punt, field goal, end of game. Joe Burrow was responsible for 3 turnovers today, and don't get me wrong, like I'm going to give him the fair amount of criticism that he should have. Again, the interception was a tip ball pick, but at the same time, 3 turnovers is 3 turnovers. But if you have a legit, like a decent defense, just a below average defense, 1 turnover shouldn't kill the game. These turnovers are so huge when it happens because there's so much pressure on this offense to literally be perfect. And that's not healthy for this team at all, because again, it's now we have to be perfect every single drive. If we don't get any points off of it, we're cooked. And that's exactly what it was. It's exactly what happened today. And we owe it to Joe Burrow, to the fact of the front office has to go and be able to get a better defense in regards of why is Geno Stone so bad? Why is Sam Hubbard regressed? All that stuff. But I mean, it is so frustrating that, the turnovers, the limited turnovers that Burrow has made this season have in essence cost us the game, but it's because of the fact that we have a defense that cannot get necessary stops and routine stops when we need them. So again, give necessary blame to when it needs to be blamed. You're playing against a guy like TJ Watt, but at the same time, the defense has to step up and do their job. We're not saying you have to go out and force 7 or 8 turnovers. Just get a couple stops. And
how about more than 1 punt?
Exactly. They did not punt until the 4th quarter. They didn't punt until the 4th quarter. I don't know.
The game was already over by then. At that point,
I can't believe it. I truly cannot. I cannot believe what we're witnessing right now. But from that standpoint, they have to help out defensively and figure this whole thing out. And it starts at the top with the coach. All I'll say.
All right.
Yeah.
Justin, you agree? Is this Coach Lou? Is this Coach Zach?
It's the entire coaching
front
staff.
office, everybody?
It's the entire coaching staff. I know that the easy scapegoat is Lou, and he is and deserves to be fired. Seriously. I mean, the amount of bad product that I've seen this defense play week in and week out, they have not shown me one single game that they've given me hope on against – instead of against bad teams that they've gotten lucky a couple of wins off of. The Cleveland game still didn't feel good, even though they only won that game by 1. Just imagine if Jameis Winston would have played that entire game for the Browns. Do you really feel confident that the defense would have gotten those stops? No, you wouldn't have. Just imagine if Daniel Jones did not get cut and actually played like a competent quarterback for the Giants. They already were rough against the run against Tyrone Tracy in that game. Do you think that they would have been good enough to stop them and got that? No. The defense just does not constantly produce turnovers. They don't constantly produce stops. It's like a miracle when you see an interception or a fumble recovery, because Cam Taylor-Britt's pick six, That felt like that was a miracle. And I just feel like that there has never been not one point during this season to where I felt like the defense was going to feel like, all right, maybe they can get away with being okay. Like this is what we need to see. No, they just been horrible. But my overall blame is the entire coaching staff, and this does start with Zach Taylor. And the front office is going to get blamed too. Do not get me wrong. But this is strictly on the field and the people that has much to do and much to say about the plays that is being called on the field. Zach Taylor's record in the AFC North as of today now is 11-23. He has a losing record against Cleveland head-to-head, against Baltimore head-to-head, and against Pittsburgh head-to-head. Oh, but we like to still sit here and point at the Ryan Finley game when he beat Ben Roethlisberger on that Christmas Eve night in 2020, that, oh, man, everything was going to be good, right? And then in 2021, we bludgeoned them 41-10 in our house, right? That was the last time we won a game at home against this team, by the way. We lost to them in 2022, albeit it was a terrible missed field, extra point blocked, whatever, and never should have lost the game. You lost against them in 2023 with Jake Brown and now in this game, when you have a healthier Joe Burrow and an offense that should be humming at high levels. But as what Chase stated, you're putting way too much pressure for Joe Burrow to be perfect, and that's not fair to him. Because here's what the honest truth would have been. What if you had Andy Dalton at quarterback today? That interception that was tipped and that was caught by Dante Jackson, that was the end of the game right there. Because guess what? Joe Burrow is good enough to keep firing you off a couple more scores, but to be honest, that was garbage time. The game was already over because you knew that the defense was not going to hold them to get enough stops in enough time for you to be able to recapture and make a miracle comeback. And the fact of the matter that's your expectation of Joe Burrow is that he got to produce a miracle comeback again, and with this horrible defense, that's a lot of shame that I need to point directly at Zach Taylor too, because his play calling has not been efficient enough at all. I also feel like that we've done Joe Burrow no favors by Andy Daltoning the situation at head coach. We have reached that point now where we have a lot of Bengals fans are going to remember the Dalton era. There was a lot of Dalton apologists, and then there was a lot of Dalton haters. It was that prime meridian line. If you had a guy better than Andy, you had a franchise quarterback and a chance to win championships and whatnot. If you had a guy that's worse than Andy, you need to rebuild and get somebody new. But what if you just had Andy? This is what we are with Zach Taylor. You got plenty of people in the fan base that are calling for his head, and rightfully so. But you also got plenty of people in the fan base that is stating that he is not the problem. Look at the defense. All this is blaming literally anybody else but him.
Crazy.
That is unacceptable.
Crazy.
That is unacceptable because when you stack rank him against your other head coaches in the AFC North, where does Zach Taylor rank? At the bottom. When you stack him up against the rest of the league in the AFC, just the playoff picture alone, where does he rank? At the bottom. At this point, you need to truly be honest and ask yourself, do you have the right guy in charge? And do you have the right guy that's leading the culture and leading the fight at the helm in critical moments? Because I'll tell you right now, John Harbaugh doesn't lose that game today. Mike Tomlin, who's faced a lot of these kind of things, he doesn't lose that game today. Kevin Stefanski, and I know he's taken a lot of brunt and criticism in Cleveland, but a two-time NFL Head Coach of the Year recipient award would not have lost that game like that. In fact, that was the same Kevin Stefanski and against the same Steelers that beat the Steelers in their house last week. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, you got to start asking yourself these honest and true questions. Can you truly move on? Should you truly move on from Zach Taylor? And the answer honestly should be yes. And if you're trying to convince yourself otherwise that Zach Taylor you can still win with them, my friend, it's not going to be a pretty offseason for you, like at least amongst the fan base. But go ahead, Chase. I know you want
to. What was it you that said? Do we not have one of you, I feel like, said we don't have an AFC North style head coach.
Yeah, we don't, and I believe I said that.
We don't play like it. We don't play like it either.
He's not an AFC North type of coach at all.
We don't have an AFC North type of team either at this moment. We don't. Right. Every other team has that foundation where it's like, don't get me wrong, like we have a very elite quarterback who's an elite passer and everything else. You know, all these other teams run the football, stop the run, control the line of scrimmage, rush the passer, and are able to be well on the back end. The Bengals have a great quarterback, great receiver, great receivers, pass rusher. But where's the additional help? They don't own the line of scrimmage at all. They don't help the quarterback out. They don't help the receivers out. And we have a head coach who, again, has won 30% of its games against the AFC North. If you can't win your division, you're not going to win in this league.
Well, Jay Glazer, I talked about Jay Glazer talking about the cultures of the Ravens and the Steelers and how they both have a culture of violence. Like, you're going to see physical football when you go to their camps. You know they're going to be hitting each other. We don't have that here.
No, bro. And you first, both of y'all just said it. I'm going to start with you, Brandon, and just go right there with that. This is why you never should have put the expectation on Joe and the offense's shoulders to be able to be perfect, because going into this game, you knew it was going to be a AFC North bloodbath. They knew, how they play on defense, but yet you still going into this game thinking that you got to pass the ball 100 times in the second half to win. And that's because of the hole you created, because the defense was so bad and that they had no choice but to at this point. But then, Chase, you said it as far as like you're so piss poor, horrendous in the AFC North. But guess what? Guess what Zach Taylor apologists are going to say? Well, it seems like that him and Lou game plans better when they go against Kansas City and Mahomes. Those are the two top dogs in the AFC.
Bro,
enough is enough, man.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, who cares? And realistically, that's Joe Burrow's record against Mahomes and Allen head to head. That is not Zach Taylor and Dwayne Arumo doing that kind of stuff. So that's unacceptable to even put that. And you think that that's good enough? Just like throughout all those years during Andy Dalton's time in Cincinnati, he's beat a lot of good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yet he never got he never could win in primetime. And me and you, we've talked about this a lot, Chase.
Yeah.
He can never win in primetime, especially on Sunday Night Football. He was bad against his division foes, like Pittsburgh more specifically, and he couldn't win playoff games, period.
I used to always say of him, he may, if you surround him with the right team, be adequate enough to not lose you a playoff game or a Super Bowl, but he'll never be good enough to win you a playoff game or a Super Bowl. We have a guy that's good enough to win any game.
We've seen it.
And we're just not putting the pieces and the coaching around it. Let me ask you about how bad this coaching move is, right? We get a gift right after the 2-minute warning with a holding penalty that we decline. And so it stays at a minute 54 or whatever it was. Clock stops and we have them running third down, and they run Justin Fields out on the field. Everybody in the world knew what was coming, and 3 defenders ran right down the line past him as he sauntered by. Like, how does that not get coached up?
Touched, bro. He didn't even get touched.
He didn't.
That is a shame. I would have lived with that if Josh Newton, who took a bad angle and basically just misdirected himself. But I would have been okay with and lived with it had Josh Newton been in a position to make the tackle, and then he just couldn't make the tackle and make the stop.
Crash down on the running back fake.
I'm sending the crash, man. And I'm not even kidding. Like, I know they are doing their thing on the one side and we're not defensive coordinators, but dude, in that dire situation, you have a running quarterback in the game. Send a guy at the QB.
100%.
Send a guy at the running quarterback.
Are you not good enough to even say that, okay, the rest of the guys can hold down Najee Harris? Let me at least get one guy out there on Justin Fields in case he pulls it and runs for it. Like, that's where we are now with this defense, with the players on this defense. I say dude, Najee Harris was playing like he was Bo Jackson today, and that's a shame because Najee Harris, he's a guy that the Steelers did not decide to pick up the 5th-year option on. Okay, they were okay with understanding that we need to move on. He's not as explosive as we thought he was, even though he has some solid enough seasons here and there and during his rookie contract or whatever. But he is not a guy that we need to invest long term in. And I said before when we were on the roundtable show, Brandon, is that the Najee Harris was never my concern. It was Jalen Warren. That was the concern for me because he was a guy like Chase Brown that can pick up speed if he gets like a screen pass, and he killed us on a number of occasions that way. But yes, piss poor coaching decision and coaching aspect. When the announcer even called it, Charles Davis, whatever.
Yeah.
And the announcer called it out for you, and everybody in their mama knew where he was going.
Knew.
And yeah, you couldn't even crash down and make the stop. Like, I don't care who's going to get hit, somebody getting hit. And the fact is, Justin Fields, he goes untouched for a first down. Like if he had to wrestle his way to get those 4 yards and he like had to hard earn that stuff, then sure, okay, you can live with it. Just Fields made a great play. But dude, man, he could have literally walked for that first down and still took a knee and got a glass of water because nobody just didn't care to even lock in on him when it was game time. And that's the season right there for the defensive coordinator. That's why Lou got to go. That right there alone, in my opinion, is why Lou needs to get the axe before the season's over.
Cherry on top.
So you also spoke about some of these other head coaches in the leagues that would make adjustments and not lose those games and stuff like that. Now, crystal ball this, if you know your defense is just been porous and not tackling, and would you try to take some heat off of them? You referenced Trace Brown, right? Trace Brown had 5.8 yards a carry, but only carried the ball 12 times. Khalil Herbert, you brought in as safety valve. He 1 carry, 14 yards. Like, you're rushing the ball well, rushing the ball more, taking some more time off the play rather than throwing the ball 78% of the time. Now, listen, I understand when you get behind, 2 scores with 8 minutes left to go.
Yeah,
that's over with. But there was so much more time that could have happened. It's just something. There had to be. He's had the same pass run mix all year. We've ran the same damn running plays all year. Mm-hmm. Like, you almost know, like, it doesn't take a film scientist, like, it doesn't take a madman watching all 22 to figure out what they're doing.
And Frank Pollock is the reason for that, because he's the run game coordinator, and he is another guy that needs to get canned as well too.
Right now.
And I know people are going to say, "Well, Dan Pitcher, he's great." Look, I understand Dan Pitcher's a first-time coordinator. He was a quarterbacks coach for Joe Burrow for a long time. But again, you got to ask yourself, because Joe Burrow covers up a lot of mistakes for these guys. Is it the offense, or is it just Joe being great?
If Joe needs to be involved in those decisions. If Joe says Dan Pitcher's my guy, I really like him, we need to build another offense around it. Whether he's maybe doesn't do the offensive coordinator because somebody actually has an offensive coordinator that does the play calling, or rather he steps back to quarterback coach with him, whatever. If that's his guy that he wants to bridge the gap between this and the next regime, I'm all for keeping him. But there needs to be, like, we're not developing offensive line play. Our offensive line scheme is terrible. Like, our play calling is so vanilla. Mod Bell here says Jamar is a dog. Fact. What's y'all playoff chances at 9-8? Well, let's start with this
right now.
What's our chances of 9-8?
Like, we ain't talking about playoffs right now. That ain't even a question. I don't even want to see this team in the playoffs no more after that. Because what makes you think that they're going to go on a run if they were to sneak in at the 7th seed? Again, we've heard a lot of people on other shows talk about, like, if they sneak in at the 7th seed, oh boy, if you're Kansas City, would you want to see them? If you're Baltimore, would you want to see that team? Dude, they're not sneaking in, okay? They're not getting in. Not with this team. Not with this roster.
All of a sudden going to figure out how to tackle?
Bro, they're not going to figure out none of the flaws that they have in playoff time. They're not good enough.
Crazy.
I think AA has a little bit more of a
realistic take.
6-11. Yeah. I think we'll wind up being 6-11 at this rate.
Can I ask y'all this though? Is this the worst defense that you've ever seen in your life? Not talking Bengals. I'm talking about worst defense you've ever seen in the NFL.
The 2018 Bengals defense comes number 1 for me. And guess who was the coordinator of that defense?
We're just thinking on the same wavelength on that one, man. Man, we don't have to.
Terrell Austin was the defense coordinator. And bro, let me just say this, because he's the coordinator for the Steelers, and everybody thinks that he's this glimmer of hope for the Pittsburgh Steelers getting there. Dude, no, he's not that good. Okay, the defense of the Steelers, they have a formula. They know how to play Steeler football, and all they got to do is just insert one coordinator in certain plays. Keith Butler was better than him. I don't know why they decided to move on from him, but whatever. But no, that 2018 Bengals defense, to me, will still rank number 1, even though this doesn't feel great. But I still cannot get out of my head the 52 points that the Saints laid on your ass in Paul Brown Stadium at the time, and they had 28 points in the first half alone. And that right there was enough said that I needed to see. Oh, and that was the same season where Terrell Lawson was fired midseason, and that also ended up being Marvin Lewis's last year. And if a lot of the similar resemblances are really kind of rearing his head this year with this bad defense, it just feels like that, it's time to close the curtain on this coach staff all the way around. And the defense coordinator may be the first to go in this, but then afterwards, man, you got to clean house the rest of the way through.
Can't be the only domino. It's got to be a whole domino effect of one by one. And if Lou is to go, and I again, I don't wish any ill will, but man, if he's to go tomorrow, it's got to be step by step of coach, go coach. Like it's got to happen. You're in. This is insanity. You're trying to do the same thing over and over again. That's what the Bengals franchise is right now. It's insanity.
Yeah, they're not trying to anything different. It's wild.
And the one person we need to walk is Bill Belichick, because I think that they would actually look down the hallway. This Malik Wright said this on a show earlier. They would look down the hallway and say, "Oh, we got a winger. We might change some stuff," but that's different story for a different time.
I would say this. Maybe, and it kind of reminds me of this situation, the early 80s Aints, the old Aints. I think they might have had a just as bad a defense, if not a little bit worse. But I will say this. It reminds me a lot of it because they had Archie Manning, who was a legitimate badass, like Joe Burrow, and they surrounded him with garbage, and they ate his career up early. I really
never saw a winning record with he was a quarterback with the Saints.
What's that?
Archie Manning never saw a winning season with the Saints.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's not as bad for sure. Mott said, "B-Dirt, I'm giving up on the Cowboys, but I have a bet with you. Do you guys think that y'all win that game?" Coin toss.
First of all, Mod, appreciate you for joining the show. I'll answer this question for you. Why are you giving up on your boys? They just won 2 straight. They have a better record now than the Bengals. You get the bad Bengals defense in your house on Monday night. Why not? Why not feel optimistic now? I mean, sure, if you're talking about playoff positioning and stuff like that, no, I don't believe in the Cowboys to make the playoffs. But nonetheless, I mean, come on now. Like, it's about time for the Cowboys to get a run against some bad teams and bad defenses.
He's got answers why I give up on the Cowboys. Jerry Jones.
And see, that's another thing where it comes to like ownership. 2 different types of owners. Jerry Jones and Mike Brown are 2 different types of owners. But yet, here we go. You saying the same thing because their ownership is not as good too. They haven't been the same since Jimmy Johnson left. So, yeah. But I think that the Cowboys should be favorites in this game against the Bengals, even though the quarterback position is by a landslide in the Bengals' favor. But nonetheless, man, I just have no faith in this Bengals defense anymore. And let me credit Tim here, and I know he's in the chat, because Tim said that on the reaction show that he has no faith in Bengals defense. That's why he picked the Steelers to win this game during our roundtable. And I don't believe in the Bengals defense neither. But I was still of the minority group of thinking that, I think that the Bengals have shown that they've been, Joe Burrow at least, is a little bit of a kryptonite to the Steelers. That's a quarterback they don't want to see. And then he still proved it today. So
I actually I did the Jeff's Know Your Enemy podcast, and I actually picked the Steelers to beat us because I thought I trusted the Steelers defense to make 1 or 2 more plays than we would make on defense. But I didn't. Then on Wednesday, I did that on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, I got fed up with Big G talking smack, so I took the Bengals just because he was making me angry.
So he got up my nerves with that too, bro. Like, if he listens to the show, I'm gonna come at his neck because he's talking about like, oh, we're gonna be physical and do this. He
said he's gonna beat us down, which that's not what happened. We just didn't.
Come on now, bro. Like, I know that he was sitting on the edge of his seat, kind of like sweating bullets, thinking that, man, we're gonna let them go back on us, and then like our defense, he was getting mad at his own defense. Like, stop with that nonsense. And then that's the thing. They don't want to see Joe Burrow for real. They really don't want to see Joe. That is the one quarterback in the entire AFC North division that Pittsburgh fans do really fear. I don't care what they say. They don't fear Lamar, okay? They respect him, but they never feared him. Hell, Lamar is 1-6 against the Steelers now. They definitely don't fear Cleveland. They just know that when it comes to playing the Browns in Cleveland, lately it's been a little bit of a struggle for them, but they know that they can still beat that squad. When they come to the Bengals, bro, they are so uber confident against us, but they know for a fact that Joe is a dog, and that any given moment he is an equalizer that can neuter up anything that they throw at him. So with that being said, that's why I went with the Bengals to win that game, to win today's game. But unfortunately, I spoke way too soon because of no mental toughness, no physicality, terrible coaching, game planning by the defense, by the head coach, all of it.
Chase, I know you got another engagement to get to, so I'm going to get your final thoughts here, put a little bow on this, and we'll wrap it up.
I got two crazy stats for you. All right. So speaking on that Cowboys game next week, last time the Bengals beat Dallas in Dallas, you guys want to take a guess on that?
1988.
There you go.
I already knew you were going with that.
Texas Stadium.
I was ready for that stat for the next show.
It was a good year.
Yeah, great year. I wish I was there. But the second thing, this is something that I noticed. So Ian Eagle and Charles Davis were calling the game. Ian Eagle has called 9 Steelers at Bengals games during his broadcast tenure for CBS. The Bengals are 0-9 when he calls Steelers at Bengals games. I nearly texted him. I almost said, hey man, just take the day off.
Call in sick.
Call in sick, you know. We're all sick of this defense. But off that note, I just thought that was a crazy stat. And I'm like, that's why the Bengals will lose today. I'll find other ways. That's why the Bengals are going to lose today. And I'm like, no surprise. But yeah, that's two crazy stats for you guys to leave on, Steelers and Cowboys. Wow. Just like week 1 and week 2, 2022. Play at home against the Steelers, play on the road against the Cowboys. And we'll see how that trend plays.
Lacey, any final thoughts?
I have none, no more. I kind of pretty much just exhausted my last bit of whirlwinds, just taking the axe to the coaching staff's head at this point, and to a lot of the players on defense more specifically. I don't know where the rest of the season goes, and I'm just going to echo maybe what Joe Burrow said when I saw it was clipped in from this presser. These final 5 weeks are going to tell you a lot about who can we lean on and who we can't, and who should be with this camp moving forward. That's pretty much where I'm at with this team. I'm not thinking about playoffs. I'm not thinking about trying to finish strong with a winning record. All that's out the door for me. I don't care about any of that. You just need to go out there and put your best foot forward, and it better start Monday night because you're already out of the playoffs, so it is what it is. So we'll just see who we can trust and lean on moving forward, man.
Agreed. Hey, we appreciate you guys rocking with us, whether it's on our YouTube channel, whether it's live, whether it's recorded, whether you see us or hear us, whether you're on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, you name those things. We appreciate you rocking with us. Please give us that thumbs up, that bell, that like, that subscribe, that 5-star rate and review. Share us if you can. We appreciate it. Helps build the brand and helps us keep bringing you more content. Tim Lyons was not unable to be with us. He's out celebrating his birthday, so happy birthday, my friend. You will be able to catch his this week, though. He will be on doing his Who Day Weekly, so you'll be able to check that out. Fantasy football and his take on the Cincinnati Bengals defense and how we played. I think we all know where that's going to head. It is what it is. But I will say this. Dejected, down, never out. No matter win, lose, or draw. Be back here next Wednesday. I'll run it through the jungle. And I'll be back here next week on Monday night wearing my stripes, rooting against the Bengals versus the Cowboys. So until then, thank you for rocking with us. We'll be back. Check out Tim on Tuesday. Check out Run It Through the Jungle on Wednesday or Thursday morning if you're on audio podcast. And we'll see you later.